Alright, so Argylle came out a couple of days ago, and the plot for it is pretty much this. A reclusive author who writes espionage novels about a secret agent and a global spy syndicate realizes the plot of the new book she's writing starts to mirror real-world events in real time. Alright, let's get into the good parts of this movie, and the first thing I'm going to say is that Sam Rockwell and Bryce Dallas Howard had really good chemistry. Okay, maybe not really good, but they had enough to get through the movie. Like I said in my out of the theater reaction, I thought separately Sam Rockwell and Bryce Dallas Howard had really good performances. And Sam Rockwell is probably one of the most underrated actors of all time. And he plays a different kind of character than he usually plays in his other movies. Here he's a lot more charming and laid back. Bryce Dallas Howard plays a different kind of character as well. Her character here is a lot more shy and reserved, who only cares about doing her job and nothing else. And having these two characters with very different personalities is definitely something that's fun to watch. The next thing that I liked about this movie is the action. The movie has a lot of long take action sequences that I personally had a really good time watching. The choreography here isn't on the level of John Wick, but it is really good. And the movie does this little thing with Sam Rockwell's character and Henry Cavill switching between action sequences, and I thought that was really well done. And speaking of Henry Cavill's character, I think one of the things I liked about this movie is that it definitely goes between the fictional world of Argylle while also staying in the real world. There are scenes where we transition from Cavill talking to Bryce Dallas Howard in the mirror, or while Bryce Dallas Howard's character is typing out a scene, you can actually see what Cavill's character is doing in the book. The next thing that I liked about this movie is Bryan Cranston. I will admit that his character isn't the most deep character in the world, but you can tell that he's having a lot of fun with this role. But once again, he's not the most compelling villain of all time. Another person that's having a lot of fun with their role is Samuel L. Jackson. His character doesn't show up until like the middle of the movie, but he's definitely a scene stealer every time. You can't really talk about this movie without mentioning spoilers, so I'm not going to do that. Because if I talk about his character, it will definitely be a major spoiler. The last thing I'll say before I get into my criticisms is something that I also said in my out of the theater reaction, which was that I thought the movie had a lot of solid twists. And I know a lot of people weren't the biggest fans of these twists, but I really did like them. Alright, let's get into some of my criticisms for this movie. Something I didn't talk about in my out of the theater reaction simply because I didn't have time was the fact that the main characters towards the end definitely just plow through a lot of the villains. Or maybe not villains, but a lot of background characters and bodyguards and stuff like that. But even once they fight the main antagonist, they simply just go through them really easily. And I feel like with any main hero towards the end of the movie when they're fighting their antagonist, I feel like they should have a little bit more of a difficulty to defeat them than just to beat them in a couple of seconds. And even the bodyguards should be a little bit more difficult to defeat as well. Also, this movie, like a lot of people have said, this movie is way too long. I'm thinking like 20 to 30 minutes way too long. A movie that this reminds me of is definitely The Lost City. And I know The Lost City isn't the first movie like this, but I think about this movie when it comes to this one. That movie's two leads definitely had better chemistry, a better villain, and that movie is 30 minutes shorter. Also, this might be a theater thing, but the audio for this movie during the action scenes was not it. Like I said before, the action sequences themselves were pretty good, but the audio was just too damn loud. So overall, I thought Argylle going in was going to be a decent movie. And the movie was almost decent in the first two acts, but once the third act started, I just started to lose interest. So this movie is definitely kind of a disappointment for me. 2024 movies have not been the best so far, but hopefully they get better for the rest of the year. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to give Argylle a 6 out of 10.